Mr. McLean here. Gonna do a quick video reviewing how to graph a linear equation like this, y equals 2x minus 3, using information that we can get from the equation about the m value, which is the slope, and the value of b, which is the y-intercept. So we can accomplish graphing this equation without making a data table. Maybe at the end we'll do the quick data table just to show you it's the same information, but when we're doing this graph, the slope's going to tell us the pattern that will exist within the graph. It's the growth rate. So the slope is 2, which we can think of as 2 over 1. So that means that this graph is going to follow the pattern of up 2 and then over to the right 1. And the signs of the values tell you. So the 2 is positive, so it's up 2, and the 1 is positive, so it's over 1 to the right. Well, so that gives me the pattern. I understand now that from one point to the next on the graph, it's going to go up 2, and then it's going to go over 1. And that's going to give me the pattern that this graph is going to follow. So at a glance, I kind of know, well, I don't kind of know, I do know the steepness and the direction of the graph. So if I know that what that pattern is, it'd be just nice to know then, well, where can I get a starting point that I can follow from? And that's what the y-intercept does. The y-intercept gives you a starting point. And the y-intercept is basically the value of, if I put in 0 for x, 2 times 0 is 0, 0 subtract 3 is negative 3. So at a glance, I can see that this graph's going to go through the point 0, negative 3. So that gives me a starting point. So now I can start plotting my points. I know this starts at 0, negative 3. That's my y-intercept. And that came from the value of b in the equation. And then from there, I know the pattern that it's going to follow. It's going to go up 2 and over 1, and up 2 and over 1, and up 2 and over 1, and so on. So that slope pattern, that growth rate, that information from m defines the pattern that that graph's going to follow. So that allows me then to know that graph quickly. I'm going to undo that and let's do it better. Let's see here. So that's what that graph's going to do. It starts at the y-intercept and it follows that slope pattern. Now I should do this because it's, oops, let's see here. I should do this just because this graph continues in both directions. And this is the graph of the equation y equals 2x minus 3. Okay, now if we had done a data table, we would have seen the same thing. Let's see, let's do another one. Okay, so looking at this, if I write negative 3 as a fraction, it's negative 3 over 1. And looking at that, I know that the pattern between the points is going to be down 3 because it's a negative 3. And then because the 1's positive, it's going to be over to the right 1. In other words, I'm going to see down 3 and then over 1. And that's going to be a pretty steep downhill line. So now I know what that's going to look like. I can go look at the information that the b gives me, and it gives me a starting point. It tells me that the y-intercept is at 0, 5. All right, so now I can plot some points. I'm going to start with the y-intercept and then follow this growth pattern. So it's down 3 over 1, and then down 3 over 1, and that pattern's going to continue. And so that's going to end up looking like that. And that's the graph of the equation y equals negative 3x plus 5. Now again, if we had done a data table, we would have gotten those same points. If I just did a quick little data table, let's do black here. So if my x values and my y values, if x is 0, negative 3 times 0 is 0, then add 5, that gives me that the y value is 5. If I do the input value of 1, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3 plus 5 is 2. And if I do 2, negative 3, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. And those are the points that I already got. This one is there, this one is there, and this one is there. So I could have done the data table. The y equals mx plus b method's just a shortcut. Okay, one more. Maybe two, we'll see. Oh, this one's a little tricky. Because the first thing we need to think about is, well, in this equation, how many x's are there? Well, there's one x, so since it's negative, it's a negative 1x. So now, if I think of that, m, the growth rate, that's negative 1 over 1. And that's telling me down 1 because of the negative 1. And then because it's over a positive 1, it's over 1 to the right. So now I know that from one point to the next, it's going to go down 1 and then over 1. And so that pattern, it's actually a pretty simple pattern. It's going downhill because it's a negative growth rate, but it's not super steep because 1 over 1 is not a big, a really fast slope pattern. And so then once I know what the pattern looks like, I just need to think about, okay, well, where am I going to start? And that's the value of b, which is the y-intercept. And it's 0, 4. All right, so we'll start at 4. And this thing's going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and so on. And so there's that graph. We'll get my ruler here. It's easier than using the straight line tool and the drawing out. So there's that graph. And that rule is y equals the opposite of x plus 4. So it starts at a y-intercept of 0, 4, which was predicted by the b, and then the growth rate, which is the down 1 over 1, that's predicted by the m in the equation. Remember, it's y equals mx plus b. Okay, one more. So the first thing I'm going to look at again is the growth rate. I'm going to think of it as a fraction. And that's telling me down 3. And then because the 1 is positive, it's over 1 to the right. So I know the pattern just at a glance is down 3, but over 1 to the right. Since the growth rate's a negative number, I knew before I started that it was going to be downhill to the right. It's just going to be a pretty steep line going downhill to the right. And then my next thought's going to be, okay, so where's my starting point? My y-intercept is at 0,9, because that's my value of b in the rule. So start at 0,9, and it's going down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. And again, I could have gotten those same points using a data table. But this is faster, it's more efficient. So this rule is negative 3x plus 9. The starting point is the y-intercept at 0,9, and that came from the b in the equation. And the pattern, or the growth rate, is down 3 over 1, and that came from the m in the rule. Okay, so I think maybe you're equipped now to try some of these on your own. So I will send you off to do that. Let me know how it goes, and good luck.